We're being live streamed. We want to welcome people from all over the world tuning in. We will be beginning. It is being recorded, and we will be beginning in a few minutes, waiting for folks to sign in and join us. This very important event. We'll be waiting just a couple more minutes as people give people a chance to tune in. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We're excited to have you all here today. This is a production of Stop Golden Rice Network Asia, the People's Coalition on Food Sovereignty and a Growing Culture. We are really excited to have you join us today. I want to make sure that we have some quick house rules before we go into the program. Please kindly change your Zoom name into this format, country, name, and organization, so we can all know where people are coming from, connect and network to work in solidarity. If you have any comments or questions, please use the chat box. We ask that you keep your microphones off if you're not speaking, and we may ask you to turn on your video to raise your questions or comments. This webinar will be posted live on Facebook, so please, please, please share. Why are we here today? As many of you guys know, coming up, we're a few days away from the United Nations Food Systems Summit. Ironically, this summit is termed the People's Summit, but it is far from. It is an insult to the global peoples, peasant and indigenous communities that were left out of the planning process. This is part of a trend that has been going on for sadly too long. The corporate takeover of our food system is the greatest threat that we're facing with right now. Our food system is designed to produce calories, not nutrition, to protect multinationals' bottom line, not the bottom billion. Today, we produce enough food to feed 1.5 times the world's population. And yet over 1 billion still go to sleep hungry. That math only works with injustice in the equation. The corporatization of our food system has led to 3 companies controlling over 60% of the seed market. 4 companies controlling 75 to 90% of the global grain trade. 5 companies controlling almost 70% of the global agrochemical market. And 10 companies controlling over 40% of the global retail. Our food system is shaped like an hourglass. You have producers on the top, and you have consumers on the bottom, being pit against each other. And at the very middle, squeezed in, is the corporate control, is the modern day pharaohs, clenching the throats of producers and consumers the world over. Enough is enough. We are tired of this injustice. And in the face of this injustice, smallholder and peasant farming communities are outproducing industrial agricultural systems the world over. On less than a fifth of the world's cultivated land, smallholder farmers produce 70% of the world's food consumed. Yet still, institutions after institutions trust the lies and false narratives of industrial agriculture. Why? Nothing shows the false promises of corporate agriculture better than golden rice. Around 20 years ago, a genetically modified beta-carotene fortified rice was proposed as a way to save millions of malnourished kids. This yellow grain was dubbed golden rice and was marketed as a miracle cure to the widespread problem of vitamin A deficiency. Today, golden rice is the first GM staple crop approved for commercial use in Asia. Golden rice proponents claim that a bowl of rice can supply 60% of a child's required vitamin A intake. The International Rice Research Institute's own data suggests that golden rice's beta-carotene content is laughably low when compared to other food sources. For example, it contains less than 10% of the beta-carotene in carrots. 10%. The beta-carotene content also degrades quickly over time. After 3 weeks in storage, the rice loses 40%. After 10 weeks, 87%. We are tired of these false solutions and false promises developed by technocratic institutions that have no other goal but their profit. Our food system must be democratized. Our food system must be peasant and indigenous led. And we are here today to make that happen. So this webinar will be discussing golden rice, the false narratives around that, the lies of industrial agriculture. We will discuss the Global People Summit, the True People Summit, which is revolved around food, agriculture, who controls and what is in store for us. And finally, what are the people's demands for a food system? So please share the discussions and participate via Facebook comments and be part of the movement to reclaim our food system. So right now, we will be hearing from 2 speakers first. They will be presenting on how corporations are trying to influence the public agenda on food and agriculture, furthering their profit, and how philanthropy is used to direct public research in food and agriculture, resulting to further marginalization of farmers and destruction of the planet, using Bill Gates and golden rice as the lens to examine this philanthrocapitalism. So it is my great honor to introduce Sarojini Rengam from Pesticide Action Network Asian Pacific as our first speaker today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lauren. I have a PowerPoint which I would like to share. share screen. Sorry. Yeah, got it. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Thank
You
you.
want to make it big,
Yes.
present?
Yes, I would. Yeah. Yes. Okay, my topic today is corporate capture of the global public policy for food and agriculture. And to start off, I would like to talk about the corporate capture of the UN Food System Summit. I think there's a lot that's been talked about, but I also wanted to kind of touch base on, on the situation where the UN has been captured by corporations. The GMC lobbies, the land grabbing enablers, cartel associations, and the World Economic Forum funded NGOs. And they were handpicked to lead the summit through an opaque process. And it's the selection was really not very clear. And so we had some of the key players, and I just want to mention three. Agnes Kalibata, Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. I will talk a little bit, I have one slide on that. The Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, which is, I think Kartini will cover most of it in her presentation. So I just want to say that, the whole focus of the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition is not nutrition, it's biofortification of certain crops. And that's not nutrition at all, it's malnutrition. Anyway, then the third key player is the World Economic Forum. Now, Agnes Kalibata was basically is the president or the chair of the AGRA, which is the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, that was funded by the Bill and Gates Foundation. And AGRA actually has collected nearly $1 billion in donations, promoting the use of commercial seeds, chemical fertilizers, and pesticides, a technology package further supported by about 1 billion per year in subsidies from African national governments. And AGRA actually covers 13 African countries. And after 14 years, reports have come out, and one of the report from Tufts Report 2021, that it's a model of high input agriculture is failing to reach large numbers of smallholder farmers. When it does reach farmers, it is failing to significantly increase their productivity, and incomes are not increasing in a way that would reduce poverty and food security. And this is nothing new, because the Green Revolution failed in Asia. And it's failed, to increase the incomes of smallholder farmers. It has failed by, polluting and contaminating the environment and pesticide poisoning of workers and farmers. I mean, that's kind of the reality of the Green Revolution. And yet, they're pushing the same ideology, the same so-called high-tech. I don't think it's high-tech, it's just input, responsive kind of technology. And of course, it's failing. And of course, AGRA has not responded to these reports. They're saying that they will do their own. So that's the situation of AGRA. And they've got Agnes Kalibata, who is the chair of AGRA, to be a special envoy for the UNFSS. So what are we thinking about? What are we doing in terms of the UNFSS? They're talking high-tech. They're talking about the same corporate control of all the input industry, and now they have others. So now we move on to the World Economic Forum, which is the big player in this UNFSS. And they talk about, recently they are talking about in January, about the Great Reset. And what is the Great Reset? They've been talking about restructuring, transforming the economy for all the years. If you look at, it's all different themes that they use. Now it's called the Great Reset because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so what they mean by that is really reviving the global economy so that it will profit the big corporations, the big transnationals. And they're seeking a better form, they call it as a better form of capitalism. But what they are doing is using techno-fixes or technology and, to actually deal with complex social and economic problems. That's all they have. And of course, this will profit the big corporations. And if you look at, for example, they have the big transnational oil giants, the heads of the big TNCs, oil giants, who are talking about the urgent need to tackle climate change. And they are the ones who created climate change. As they have contributed tremendously to climate change. And they're talking about how to address climate change. And we know that they're going to profit from all the techno-fixes that they're going to introduce in this process. So we have always said that the Great Reset is a governance and social innovation model where risks are socialized and where profits and gains are privatized. So the society will pay for the mistakes and the TNCs will continue to profit. So this is the Great Reset. So let's not be fooled by this. So, so 148 groups worldwide urged the UN to sever the partnership with the World Economic Forum. And when you talk about the UNFSS, it talks about transformation. As I mentioned, it's big profits for the big corporations and the big players. The process will further intensify the impacts of neoliberal globalization of the past 4 decades in terms of liberalization of food and agriculture that provided huge profits to TNCs, monopoly control of agricultural production today. And then you have these reforms of liberalization, privatization, and deregulation since the Green Revolution has both corporatized and denationalized food systems. That's what we are facing right now. And when you have even food aid and embargoes being weaponized by powerful nations as political tools against poorer and food-deprived countries. And that's intensifying with the pandemic. During the pandemic, the situation has intensified with increasing repression of activists and protests against laws that are anti-people, like the 3 farm laws in India. We all have been protesting that, and farmers are still protesting and there's tremendous impact on the smallholder farmers. But they're trying to push for this, and the farmers are resisting. So this has led to a rise in the violations of human rights, imprisonment and killings of farmers, lawyers, human rights defenders, activists in the struggles for people's rights. So we are facing that as well. If you talk about the control, and when people protest, there is violations of their human rights. So if you look at what happened in the last year or two, because of the pandemic, you have Syngenta, who posted a 2% increase in sales to USD 12 billion for the beginning months of the first 6 months of 2020. Corteva, which is DuPont and Dow, they have merged to form Corteva, posted 5% increase with 9.4 billion. Bayer posted 3.2 billion to 4 billion. BSF received 1 billion pounds, and Bayer got 600 million pounds bailout funds for from the UK, which are all British taxpayers' money, and without conditions for worker safety or environmental protection. And then Cargill also, revenue for the year actually totaled 114.6 billion. And it's unbelievable that they can profit from the pandemic, during the pandemic and from the pandemic. And these are people, these are corporations that sell pesticides. They have a monopoly control of pesticides for companies, control almost 70 to 80% of pesticide markets. Seeds, commercial seeds, that's like 60% is controlled by 4 corporations. And then GMOs, of course, it's 2 or 3 corporations that control the genetically engineered crops and their seeds. So really monopoly control. And here they are continuing to profit because the UN has been bought over. It's also because of the neoliberal policies that our governments have signed on. And so the struggle goes on and intensifies during this pandemic. I also want to kind of share a little bit about the FAO CropLife Toxic Alliance. We have a campaign, but what I wanted to just highlight is FAO is now headed by Chinese. He was from the Ministry of Agriculture, very high-level person, and now FAO has a crop agreement or MOU with CropLife, and we call it Toxic Alliance. I just want to highlight these are the guys who are members of the CropLife International, and these are the board of directors, all the corporations, all the chemical corporations. Here you have BSF, Bayer, Corteva, Syngenta, Sumitomo, BSF, FMC, DuPont. So all the big guys are there, and they have a MOU with the FAO, and that's very scary because these are the corporations that sell the highly hazardous pesticides, and they have commercial seeds and the GMOs, all problematic in terms of small food producers, and FAO has a MOU with them. So actually what is happening is that our documentation has shown massive pesticide poisoning, human health and the environment. And a recent study has shown that 385 million farmers and agri-workers suffer acute pesticide poisoning each year. And these are some of the survivors and victims of pesticide poisoning. But we know that in many places like Yavatmal, 100 over farmers were poisoned and died because of highly hazardous pesticides sold by these companies. And within the 4 years, about 100 over farmers died. And these are official statistics. Then what you have now is that that is why we are calling for the need to reclaim our voices, and this whole Global People's Food System Summit is a people's voice that we want to heighten, intensify, and bring to the fore. These are the small food producers whose voices should have been heard in the UNFSS, but we are having it here, and we want to amplify their voices so that their demands and their needs are met. And so this is really for us an important aspect where we reclaim our voices in terms of the transformation of the global food regime. We of course want to criticize the UNFSS and all the corporate capture of our food systems that has been going on for slowly in the 4 decades from the time of the Green Revolution. And we are calling for so the people's movements are calling for a very clear and a right to life and livelihoods, right to a healthy planet where environment is prioritized, right to safe, healthy, and culturally appropriate food, right to produce sustainably through agroecology, and right over land and territory. So this is encapsulates, but there's a broad demand in terms of people's rights and food sovereignty, that people's food sovereignty that is needed. And that is why we are calling for this summit for a just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems. So I would end here. I think I see Lorenzo, my time is up, I think. So yeah, just to say thank you. And this is the information for us. And I think Gail will have more information about the Global People Summit information and website. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Saro. Thank you so much. Yes, it's really important to understand the breadth of corporate takeover in our food system. And this is imperative to understanding the kind of control that cements over us. As Leah Penniman from the United States says, to free yourself, you must feed yourself. As Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso says, those who feed you control you. These are the systems that are meant to dominate and control the world. Right now, we are joined by Dr. Chito Mendina from Masipag, one of the leading organizations dedicated to farmer-led research. He will be speaking about Bill Gates and the International Rice Research Institute and the corporate hijack of rice science. Hello.
Thank you, Lauren, for that introduction. So I was assigned, as mentioned by Lauren, about Bill Gates and IRI, the corporate hijack of rice science. So the first presenter, Ms. Saro Rengam, talk about public policy. My presentation will be more on the development of science, particularly as applied to rice. As everyone knows, rice is staple food to 60% of the population of the whole earth. So rice is quite strategic to all people on this planet. Bill Gates, of course, is the fourth richest man in the world with a net worth in 2021. This year, an estimated 124 billion US dollars. But Bill Gates as a person, I will not be talking about him, but I'll be more focusing on the activities of his foundation together with his wife or ex-wife. So I will be talking more on the influence of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I will be most talking about this as BMGF, as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This BMGF is the largest supposedly philanthropic organization with the total assets of more than 46 billion US dollars. With that big amount, he has the biggest donor to many activities in health as well as in agriculture. So with the big donor, it goes influence to policy, research, and programs into the areas where he's funding or the foundation is funding, as I mentioned, the health and agriculture. In fact, Bill Gates, as the major owner of the foundation, has direct access to world leaders as well as UN agencies. You can see the influence of Bill Gates into the policy aspect in terms of this governing people. But before I proceed, let me mention that the BMGM trust fund also is invested, and it has investment in a broad activities, businesses, big activities in mining, agribusiness companies, chemical and pharmaceutical corporations, beverage corporations, multinational retail, fast food companies. In fact, they're now pushing about fake food or artificial meat, artificial food, and also in fossil fuel. So you see, while it is a trust fund, while it is not being used, they also invest in some of this multitude of enterprises, generate more money. And of course, being a trust fund, it escapes taxes from the from the home government. It's not easy to highlight the excessive global influence of the BMGF or Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but to give you some examples for you to imagine the scope or the magnitude of their influence, representative of BMGF sits in the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, the only private entity that is sitting in the board, which includes the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the World Bank. In terms of agriculture, the BMGF representative is the only private organization in the board of the SIGIAR Fund Council. SIGIAR actually is the umbrella organization that manages the international agricultural research. So SIGIAR stands for Consultative Group in International Agricultural Research. So in this fund council is the policy making because of this powerful BMGF, because of it has the third largest donor to SIGIAR. It is amounting to about 13% of the budget of the Consultative Group in International Agricultural Research, or SIGIAR. With that big influence, it is skewing global policies in agricultural research to its own interest. Later on, I will explain the interests further, although I have shown you in the previous slide about the interests of BMGF. In addition to that, BMGF is so instrumental in funding the seed banks and diversity seek, or DIBSIC, which is taking patents on seed collections through genome mapping. It means with this patenting of seeds information that any application later on, they will be taking royalty fees to such patented seeds that are actually owned by small-scale farmers throughout the world, but collected by international institutions. Given this excessive influence of BMGF, or Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, on the other hand, they lack transparency and accountability. They are accountable to no one except for themselves. And the policies they promote and work is never evaluated by themselves or by an impartial body. The evaluations are done by independent bodies, and the outcome has become negative, as mentioned by Saro with that AGRA. I will mention some of the AGRA also later on. So as we proceed, first we have to look at the SIGIAR system, Consultative Group of International Agricultural Research, wherein we have these 15 agricultural research centers throughout the world related to agriculture and food and policy about this, especially the International Food Policy Research Institute. So over a period of 12 years from 2008 to 2020, the BMGF has funded or given some $1.1 billion to the 15 organizations. Sorry for my voice. And into the SIGIAR system main organization of about $15 million. So a total of 1.1 billion, 1.136 billion had been granted to the whole CGR system over a period of 12 years. Erie, I will give you the details in the next slides. But before I proceed, let me share also some details on what has been mentioned by Taro already. But the BMGF has bankrolled about 666 or two-thirds of the 1 billion funding of AGRA. And in this funding, it has also required the African governments to give counterpart, that is another 33%, into the policies or into the priorities of the BMGF. And these are used to further subsidize to purchase the commercial inputs of modern or green revolution agriculture in Africa, that is seeds, chemical fertilizers, and chemical pesticides. Even if BMGF claim to be science-guided, data-driven, and result-oriented philanthropy, the results actually are not promising because there is an undernourished 30% in the 13 focus countries of the AGRA, and that is translated to about 130 million people become undernourished during that long years of 14 years actually. And even where production has some increase, did not result in the reduction in rural poverty or hunger. In fact, the goals of the AGRA of addressing poverty and hunger, as well as increasing food and income security, actually are masking the broader objectives of BMGF, that is actually neoliberalism and corporate agriculture. Now, actually, this presentation is quite heavy in the amounts of grants, because from the amount we can derive the strength of policy of BMGF into research in agriculture in Erie, and focusing on rice in our topic of tonight in this conference. So first is in this listing, the trying to change rice from a C3 plant into a C4 plant, that is to become more productive, increasing photosynthetic efficiency with about $19 million. But it looks like they have failed into this, because by 2016 they have stopped producing this crop. The second group of projects from 2010 to 2017, 2022, next year, actually is the Golden Rice Project, which was mentioned by Lauren in the introduction quite extensively, that from 2010 to 2022, BMGF has given 2 batches of grants totaling $28 million, more than that, deploy and develop genetically engineered vitamin A rice in Bangladesh and in the Philippines. So that you can see also, that's highlighted in red font here. It's not only development, it's not only research, but also deploying. So that is already into the commercialization stage. And now in the Philippines, this year, the application for commercialization by Erie has been approved by our regulators in the Philippine government. Another project supported by Erie is stress-tolerant rice varieties, amounting to more than $52 million from 2011 to 2019. And this kind of varieties being developed, although stress-tolerant, still the kind of growing rice is still monocropping, and the varieties that are stress-tolerant are also dependent on chemical inputs of fertilizers and pesticide, the so-called chemical responsive varieties. They're not the so-called organically adapted varieties, but the high tolerant varieties, similar to those of the Green Revolution varieties. And the traditional transforming rice breeding is making the so-called breeding genetic gain efficiency into homogenizing into the whole of Asia. That's why in the Agri-Alliance, accelerated genetic gain in rice in South Asia and Africa, coming from a merger of the two previous STRASA and TRB projects, are unifying rice breeding efforts for the areas in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. And this is influencing, strengthening the partnerships among NARES, or National Agricultural Research and Extension System, influencing the kind of research that should be done by the national research institutions in the rice growing areas of the government research activities. There were other activities being supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, improving agricultural policies and strategy management and partnerships being supported by this and other activities. So with this supporting activities, the grants from BMGF to IRI actually is translated into 15% of the total budget of IRI. But when you look at the actual research, because some of this 15% actually is actually, some of them are in management or administration, but the active for research actually are the so-called bilateral and restricted research fundings. Restricted meaning what are the specifications of the priorities of the funding donor, like BMGF, it must be allocated to those kind of research. So that in this case, in 2016, as a baseline, as the last published audited report, financial report of IRI, 18% of the bilateral restricted research are donated by IRI. This indicates actually the high influence of IRI based on the funding donor. Let me add also that the BMGF is supporting Harvest Plus doing biofortified crops through genetic engineering, synthetic biology, or genetic editing, gene editing, the modern kind of improving rice. And but in this case, not only rice, because it is through the International Food and Policy Research Institute based in California, USA, but it's one of the sister agencies of the SIGAR institutions. IRI and rice, of course, SIAT is and beans and cassava, CIMIT and maize and wheat, IITA and biofortified cassava. The last funding from BMGF to Harvest Plus was about $25 million. So you can see from the funding and the extent of influence of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to research and rice science, in this case, a specific example. So the NARES are the National Agriculture Research and Extension Services of national governments, focusing on rice research and technology development up to extension, up to farmers utilization. The approaches by different governments who are growing research, growing rice in their own countries had been homogenized through IRI, meaning the approaches had been the same thing because they were co-opted by IRI through network, advice, staff training, seed distribution, as well as technology. So you can see that other approaches that are more sustainable, like organic, agroecology, permaculture, and other approaches like even sustainable agriculture became neglected because they are not cutting edges science. And of course, more specifically, they're not priorities of IRI because they're not patentable. They're not the so-called genetically engineered patentable technologies, seeds. So overall, the IRI science has devastated.
Dr. Chito, excuse me, we have a few minutes left. I just want to let you know.
Yeah. So IRI science have devastated rice agriculture and farmers. Genetic erosion, displaced biodiversity, soil nutrient imbalance and depletion, pest and disease outbreaks, poisoned environment, pesticide poisonings, farmers even forgot to do farming because they were all supplied by extension agents, and the bankruptcy of farmers has created more poverty and hunger. So the Gates and Erie role in corporate hijack of rice science has the following mode. They captured and homogenized, as I said, rice science into corporate agenda, and they displaced local and national initiatives, as I have said 2 slides earlier. They were pushing chemical fertilizers and pesticides. They were pushing patented GMO seeds, gene editing, and synthetic biology. They are conducting research useful to transnational corporations in terms of policy, field testing, and surveys. Overall, what they have done, they have made agricultural inputs and outputs essential commodities in agriculture, and their business commodities by trade and by corporations. And they bring all farming operations into capitalist fold and create dependency of farmers to corporations. In this all, they have eradicated small-scale farmers and local knowledge. So in a broader context, what I've been saying about the influence of BMGF and ERI is that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation actually is more of not a philanthropist, but being a philanthro-capitalist system promoting corporate America, promoting neoliberal economic policies and corporate globalization. So that is using the big pharma, big agriculture, big poison and businesses that benefits Bill Gates, as I mentioned in my earlier slides, where the BMGF funds had been investing, and they have investments in all of them. The aid and charity as a central strategy in helping the poor is not the best one, because what is more important is justice to farmers and consumers is more important. The influence actually is pervasive that many experts also choose to be silent because of funding and patronage. If you wanted to read more about Gates' activities on seeds, food, knowledge, and the earth, there is a global citizens report published by Nabdanya, Gates to a Global Empire, and I have my chapter here in chapter 3, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and ERI, Corporate Hijack of Rice Science. So you can just search in Google, and you can download this another research paper. Thank you very much. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chito. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is modern day neocolonialism. They have their own interest that is rooted in white saviorism and promoting the American industrial agenda to the rest of the world. Thank you so much, Dr. Chito, for laying that out so clearly. Next, we have a video that from the Golden Rice Network, which was done in front of the Department of Agriculture last 2018 by local and international participants, demanding the stop to planned commercial approval of golden rice. My dear friend Gail behind the scenes is going to be putting this video on. Gail, will you share the video, please?
ipinaturok ang Dengbaksya. Ngayon, gusto namang ipalunok ang golden rice. There is no scientific evidence that golden rice is safe, will not resort to genetic contamination. It's very clear na the agenda behind to further monopolize seeds.
Paano na po ang mga may pangarap na kabataan kung sa pagkain pa lang pinapatay na po tayo? Kaya mga nanay, ako po ay kumakatok sa inyong puso na maging mapagmatsyag, maging mapagmasid sa mga pagkain kung ibibigay natin sa ating mga anak.
We farmers from the Intercontinental Network of Organic Farmers Organization give our full solidarity support to the Filipino farmers and to resist your golden rice.
Farmers are dying, they are committing suicide, they are in debt. So GM cotton experience is already with India, and from that experience we want the Philippines to learn and reject GM rice, golden rice.
Farmers who are suffering their whole lifestyle with the paddy field. You have to think about your own people, hear about their voice.
Thank you for sharing that video. Next, we have 3 experts on food and agriculture. That'll be enriching the topics given by our previous 2 presenters. We will be covering how food and agriculture are captured by corporations through technological and legal means, how biofortification is being pushed instead of food diversity, and how farmers' rights to seeds are affected by the commercialization of golden rice. First, we would like to have Dr. Narasimha Reddy of Pan India to talk about emerging technologies and the shifting control of seeds.
Thank you, Lauren. I have a presentation. I think I'll start with the experience in India. Anyway, I think we need to understand these technologies which are being pushed towards us, one after the other in the last 15 years. They're all built on the ruins of the previous technology. So you could see the argument started with increasing the yield of per acre crops, and then they thought they peddle that farmers will profit from that, and they can perform their marriages of the children, educate them. But in the last 20 years, we have seen that yields have dropped and quality of the crop has gone down. But then now, when they originally they brought insect resistant BT crops, now they are pushing for herbicide tolerant crops. And further, with the climate change, now it is being about fungus resistance, it is virus resistance, so drought resistance, flood resistance. And the latest argument I think they are trying to build is nutrition enhancement. So that's where golden rice comes in. So as usual, if you look at this, the plethora of institutions floated to reinforce the arguments being made by the lobby, basically funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You could see this Global Commission on Adaptation, chaired by Bill Gates, clearly says nutrition is required because of so and so disease is there, tropical diseases require nutrition. Then you have a CGIAR funds, which Dr. Chito has mentioned detail. I think here it was surprising for me to see one of the study reports which said CGIAR investments have given a tenfold return on those investments. I mean, that's a study commissioned by CGIAR says. So that means it's more of business. So they invested 1 rupee and then they got 10 rupees out of that. So GM crops is more about the profits. So this transition, technology transition from one kind of modification and now going into food fortification. So all these technologies are built on these previous failures, but then profits continue to flow. So in India, BT cotton has given enormous profits for Monsanto, but farmers are losers. So they had at least income before BT cotton, about 25,000 to 30,000 rupees. Now their income has fallen to 10,000 rupees. So farmers are losing, environment is losing, ecology is losing, but profits continue for the technology provider. Now, I think Chito did not mention this, I'm not sure. So BMGFS floated this company, Agricultural Innovations. So I think this is now emerging, in all these agriculture innovations. And if you look at their far-sighted investments, the Svalbard, global seed vault, where I think some 50,000 seeds are preserved. So I think whenever the doomsday is there, or so whenever they think there is a problem, I think this is going to be their safe deposit to continue to earn the profits. Now, Bill Gates is not just talking about genetic modification. So you can see he has built empires in various other sectors, which again Dr. Chito has mentioned in detail. But one thing we need to understand is each one reinforces the other. So when you are talking of vaccines, at least in the context of COVID-19, where nutrition is required to improve immunity to fight a COVID. So there again, now they are talking of smart nutrition and a lot of projects which are coming up in the name of smart nutrition. So seeds, vaccines, and digital, this is again linked with the business empire. So India right now is, government of India is pushing for digitalization of Indian agriculture, and Microsoft is the principal company behind that. And of course, research, we know CGIAR, ERI, and various other organizations are involved in promoting research which this person wants. And numerous companies, a number of companies are there. But principally, I think we again need to understand he not only investment and the returns on investment, he also pushes governments to invest. So a lot of public resources are being invested in the name of yield, nutrition, climate change, food security, but all of them ultimately benefit these private empires. I think that is very clear, and that's where our fight is when we are talking of UN Food System Summit or talking of the Toxic Alliance FAO has with crop life. So public resources being used for private purposes. Now this, most of us know biotech, is plateauing. It's not growing, contrary to the publicity which they keep giving. It is, it has reached a level, but it is not going beyond that level. And that's only 28 countries. Not many countries are also pursuing that. Now, the destruction, which I think my next distinguished eminent speaker, Deval Dev, is going to explain. But if you see in these seeds, self-pollinated, cross-pollinated hybrids and genetically modified, you can see completely multinational companies dominating the scenario. And the market is now, I think it's only in the only 3 companies are dominating it. I have 3 more important points, so I'm rushing through. So 2007 we had 10 companies, and now to 2020 we have only 3 companies. So this is again we have very few GM crops, and most of it is again in US. So cotton, corn, soya bean, but not many other crops. So even though the contrary to the impression which is given, it's across the crops. Again, adoption, you can see even in US, it is plateauing, it is not growing at a level which they are expecting. So why I am saying all this is that the technology is ruined, and now they are trying to build a new argument for their own technologies. So you can see this is again access to seed index developed by one of the institutions which are part of this global empire. And they are saying that only 13 seed companies, with all their market manipulation, have still not reached 10% of the small farms. So now that is why they are now targeting nutrition value. So 6 global companies are targeting nutrition value for their breeding programs. Of course, there are many countries which are banned GMO. Now the concerns, most of farmers are concerned about limited rights to retain and reuse. This is across the world, not only in India, even in the US, organic farmers, small farmers are committing suicide, and they are intimidated by the multinational companies like Monsanto. So limited reliability, criminalization of farmers, and high prices linked with the harvest prices. Of course, environmental concerns were contamination, irreversible contamination, and resistance. I think these are 2 major issues. And risk, of course, human health. Now, across the world, GMO advocates keep telling us no, there's no evidence of adverse impact because of GMO foods. But then where is the research? All the research is controlled by the very same empire which is promoting this. Well, of course, now we are talking of new GM technologies where editing has become easy. In fact, Bill Gates was in Andhra Pradesh in India, in the place where I'm residing in 2017. So he talked about CRISPR and gene editing technologies, which are very easy and that are going to be promoted in future. So this kind of technology again is very risky and unregulated, and I suppose the UK is now thinking of allowing gene edited foods. So that's going to be a very disastrous consequence. So the point, I just want, these are last two slides. I want to explain because how food systems are captured using this, emerging technology, what they say as technology. So the example of sugarcane, in India, when I was young, we used to grow a sugarcane which is full of water, 80% water and 20% of glucose from which sugar was extracted. Now hybrid seeds were brought, so the volume of the sugarcane was brought down with no water. So that means you can't eat directly and it has to go to a sugar mill. So only a sugar mill can extract the sugar. But before, that sugar cane we could eat directly or we could make jaggery out of it. So farmer had another option instead of going to sugar mill, depending on sugar mill. All that is lost because now we don't have sugar cane, which was a traditional variety. Now same case with rice. So rice, of course, now they are talking of biofortification in India. I think GM golden rice is another aspect which we're talking about. Even though we have some 3 million varieties, 30 million varieties, which ensure nutrition and which respond to various needs, including enhancing the breast milk of a new mother. If she eats this rice, I think she'll get more milk available for the infant. Cotton seed, of course, BT cotton has dominated through devious means, through market restriction contracts. But ultimately, what we are seeing is insect resistance. Now, pink bollworm, which was not there, it has come back. Only 200 pests were there attacking cotton before. Now, at least 350 pests are attacking. So, overall, we can see the burden is on farmers because the yields are going down and the quality has gone down. Another example you can see is tomato. In the 1980s, PepsiCo brought a variety for its own contract farming, which was allowed only in that instance, because earlier India did not allow private seeds. And today, in 2021, we have only that variety which has no water, but it is suitable for only ketchup and sauce, tomato sauce. So suitable for factory processing. So many of these traditional tomato seeds are lost. They are only being revived by farmers, individual farmers, NGOs, and interested farmers. So you can see a lot of these 4 examples, how seeds are used to capture these systems and wipe out the choices for the people, farmers, and also consumers. So this is the overall what you can look at. Hybridization started this process where factory-oriented hybrids were brought about, which may, led to loss of nutrients. Most of the hybrids, they don't have nutrients which are there in the traditional seeds. And now genetically modified crops are being brought about in the same name of yield and but basically helping factory processing. And here again, you can look at corn. Corn, we again had a lot of direct uses. But today, if I go to a cornfield, I can't eat that corn directly because I can't chew that corn. It has to be processed only at the factory, and which becomes animal feed, but does not come to the people. So this kind of distortion, genetic distortion, along with the food system distortion and production distortion, and all this is being done only in the name of nutrition, yield. So most people believe this kind of logic, but they don't understand how these technologies are continuously emerging on the ruins of the previous technologies, and how they are ruining the food systems, how health is being ruined, and then the local economy is ruined. So all these interlinked processes, I think that we need to understand as part of this neo-colonialization which we are talking about, and where we can see the biggest name is Bill Gates, but there are other corporations and political leaders who are supporting that kind of economic buildup. So I think we need to, keep on informing ourselves and educate others so that there is a resistance built against this. So this UN Food System Summit and the Counter Global People Summit, I think we need to talk about all these issues in both the platforms. So thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Dr. Narasimha. Next, we have Kartini Simone from Grain talking about biofortification. Kartini, are you there?
Yes, Lauren,
Oh,
I'm here.
please go ahead.
I have some presentations to share. 1 second, let me. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lauren. My name is Kartini Samon. I'm based in Jakarta, Indonesia. I work for Grain. We're a small research and information organizations that support farmers' movements in advancing community and biodiversity-based agriculture. And in this opportunity, I'll be talking more about biofortifications, and the title is pretty straightforward. I think corporate solutions to malnutrition. And I think the presentation will echoing a lot of what the other speakers before have shared. So as we see in the video that was played before, that golden rice has been introduced over 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, but the resistance, the challenge against golden rice also have been going on for almost the same time. And many of the organizations who gather here today have been part of that strong resistance against golden rice. So I just want to highlight why is it important to challenge golden rice in the current food system context. Because Dr. Reddy has talked about the development of GMOs, but golden rice is the first generations of biofortified crops. And the proponents of GMO have used these arguments of nutrition improvements in the seeds to pave ways for further public acceptance to GM crops into main staple food of millions of people. And this is actually bringing new wave of GMOs that now provide some sort, that says to provide some sorts of benefits for consumers. And commercializations of golden rice that happen in the Philippines happen almost simultaneously with the commercializations of GM wheat that happen in Argentina, just separate a few months apart. Rice as well as wheat are staple crops of not just people in Asia, but across the world. And these are crops that have not yet fully colonized by corporate seed industries that already mentioned by the other speakers, because there are still thousands of local seed varieties actually that are in the hands of the farmers. But the proponents of GMOs try to capture that and gaining support from consumers, adding nutrition improvements to these GM crops. But the promotions of a single crops diet is a false reductionist solutions to malnutrition, because this is actually following the path of green revolutions that already led dominant crops, destroying so many of the biodiversity in the farmer's field over 50, 60 years. So it really based on this monoculture way of producing food. And one of the current flagship projects of the Global Agriculture Research Network, or CGIR, are to develop biofortified crops to increase nutritional value. And they are in the close collaborations with, Saro mentioned in the beginning, GAIN, Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, to increase the nutritional value of a handful of crops after they themselves are successfully actually help erode many of the local food diversity through the green revolutions that they lead in Asia in the beginning. So CGIR spends 500 million of biofortification, their funds only for biofortification development since 2002, and 100 million of that was spent to develop golden rice, but they also develop other GM crops like the GM cassava, golden banana in Uganda. And for example, 21 million was spent in the GM cassava, high in iron, zinc, and provitamin A. So if you look at the biofortification crops that are being promoted, these are only three micronutrients that are being developed: iron, zinc, and provitamin A, despite the fact that our bodies need at least 40 micronutrients every day. Why? Because these are the easiest for the industry to develop. And so CGIR itself, it's a consortium of 15 international research centers, and that's been going around since the 60s and 70s. Is the single biggest grant recipients of Gates Foundations, and Dr. Chito have break down many of that. Back in 2014, we did a little bit of research to break down part of that, and we follow up, and we found that 90% of the funding from Gates Foundations on their agriculture grants actually goes to 90% of it goes to research center based in North America and Europe, though they are conducting or implementing those research in developing countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And these are just to show the big context of some of the key biofortified crops that's happening, that CGIR's lead, from Philippines to Mexico, from Nigeria to Indonesia. These are different staple food actually that are being tweaked and changed into that says to have nutritional value. But it's just a handful of handful of crops. Even like, for example, with golden rice, the amount of nutrient that contains in golden rice is far lower than what's naturally available. We have so many diversity of vegetables and fruits that has higher level of nutrients than golden rice, but they continue to do the same path of the early step of green revolution. So they're very much focusing on just a few crops that can be, that can be produced in massive scales quickly, and just tweak it a little bit and said that this is better for you. And I'm just going to say that biofortification approach is continuing that promotions of monoculture and focusing on a handful of crops that they've been destroyed. The diversity in the field have been completely destroyed, and diets these days become very monotonous. there's only a handful of staple crop rice, wheat, maize, cassava, banana, that is people still consume around the world. But the source of nutrients are so abundant actually in natures, and farming, traditional farming systems have known that for many, many years. And again, biofortifications is a very top-down approach to Western scientists that believe that I have better knowledge of food and nutrition than traditional farming system. We put this to, when we look at who promotes or who quote unquote creates the biofortified crops, there is a certain pattern. There are all white men, from the father of biofortifications, called father of biofortification, Dr. Boyce, to Petricus, who invented golden rice. This shows very white dominations to food and agriculture around the world, and they were thinking that we know better than the traditional farming system. That's not the case, of course. And in some places, actually, in countries like India, I think our next speakers can talk more about this. But these reductionist solutions to malnutrition have pushed a few countries to create this such regulations that's a bit absurd, actually. It's a mandatory fortifications on a handful of staple crops, and in this case in India, one of it is rice, and we don't know how to call it yet, but they create fake rice, but we think it's a fake rice because they took a low quality of rice, or broken rice, and mixed it, make it into flour, mixed with certain nutrients, and then create these kernels, these rice kernels, that says as a fortified rice. So it's a rice that's been going through a lot of process, despite the fact that, and this is a low quality rice that's being used. But I think Dr. Dab will show you that there's so many local varieties of rice that has such a high quality of nutrients available in nature. And one last, a few points that I want to highlight is that, despite that Gates have been highlighted, have been portraying as this, giving away his wealth, his fortune to betterments of global health and nutrition. But actually his profit was doubled in the last 2 decades, where most of his investment of food investment goes directly to fast food industry. So these are big corporations, big fast food corporations that also receive investment from the Gates Foundation's trust. And just want to point out again that one thing this pandemic should tell us, that the world needs a better public health and food system to survive the impact. We see how during the pandemic, people are crazy to try to stock their pantries. Supermarkets are empty, but in the end, it was the solidarity efforts from communities, the work that farmers, together with this solidarity that built in the community, that actually sustain the community. The examples from different countries in Asia have shown that the way communities actually lift up each other's in the time where there's a food crisis, they stood up for each other. So food and health issues are often interlinked. I think in the current pandemic situations that we live right now, centralized food productions and distributions do not have the capacity to feed us safely. The zoonotic diseases is actually happening because of concentrations of productions and distributions. Not to mention, having this reductionist approach to nutrition. One of the sharing that that we had from groups in India shows that the Adivasi and the small peasant communities in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, for example, they have shows that their traditional farming system provide diets that's highly nutritious. So I'm going to answer that. The question is which system actually we choose, a diverse traditional diets based on diverse farming system, or replacing this with nutritionally enhanced crops, just a handful of it. And the fact that to solve the problems, we cannot rely on the hands of billionaires like Gates and others, but it is in the hands of millions of small food producers, local markets, and diversified food. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kartini. Yes, this is a simple choice, one of uniformity and control, and one of democracy and diversity. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Next, we have Dr. Debal Deb from India talk about seed commons and alternative systems to rice control. Dr. Debal, are you here? You're on mute, sir.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Right.
All
right. Thank you. I will just in a minute, I'm going to share my screen and going to present this. I hope it's visible to all of you.
Do you want to make it full screen, Debal?
Yeah, it would be better. Yeah. Should I make it here?
Yeah, slideshow.
Okay, all right. Okay. Right. So I actually make this note deliberately with the word intelligent, because we all know that we have already witnessed many instances of dumb people as the heads of several nations over the past recent decades. So I don't need to mention their names. The point is that the people behind the nuclear power, nuclear bombs, mustard gas, or Agent Orange are very powerful, but not exactly intelligent in the true sense of the term. If you consider sensibility, reason, rationality, or scientific and cultural understanding. So what exactly is this intelligent? But nevertheless, all these anti-civilizational, anti-people programs and technological products are promoted as progress because some intelligent people, not in power necessarily, believe that GDP growth is the indicator of progress. GDP growth surely is an index of growth of industry's profit, and industry co-opts and coerces the government to institute GDP as the only measure of human progress and national prosperity. And the best example today is the golden rice, how this has been promoted as an intelligent solution to solve the vitamin A deficiency problem. Now we have to talk about this now, how science and technology has been co-opted by industry is clearly evidenced by the suppression of the inherent uncertainties in GMO, several times acknowledged by genuine scientists, but always promoted as precise science, as in golden rice or BT cotton or whatever. The inherent uncertainties that has been 100 times repeated by scientists, geneticists, and molecular biologists is that there are always unintended gene products in the GMO within the organism. And the second is the unintended effects on other species, on ecosystems, and on human health of these products. Although the only uncertainty that is lacking, there's no uncertainty at all, is in maximizing profit of the proprietary seed industry. But all the other effects, the effects of GMO is always uncertain and unintended. And that's been also, documented several times over by genetic engineers themselves. For one example is this: some of these golden rice plants actually have shown unexplained differences to the respective non-genetically engineered control plants. And we have seen, it's been documented in 3 papers, shorter stature of the plant, late flowering, and some of them had a much smaller number of seeds, and essentially the productivity is much lower than the non-GM counterpart of the golden rice. And this was published in 2003 by one of the makers of the golden rice, the 3rd generation golden rice. Exactly the same conclusion was again repeated by another study that is more recent, that was published in 2017. And in this kind of molecular and functional characterization, in this study, they showed morphological and biochemical and molecular characterization of these lines to identify the reason that shows pale green leaves, drastically reduced panicle size, reduced grain number, and much less yield compared to the recurrent parent, Shwarna, which was the parent of this, the non-GM one. Now, this is repeated again. Again in 2020, exactly the same result repeated in the 3rd generation golden rice. These are all suppressed in the news. The last one that I referred to, that was 2010 paper, is not only the morphological properties and the yield of the plant itself, the rice, golden rice plant itself, but also the compositional changes, the content of protein, vitamin content, amino acids content, fatty acids contents, and different kinds of vitamins like vitamin B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, all of them, these changes, from 25% to 57% of vitamins are less in the golden rice, and 20 to 50% less of iron and other mineral contents, 25% less or more for protein. There are many of these kind of changes which are not unintended, and nor do the scientists can explain why this change is happening. So the scientists who have designed the so-called precise method of genetic engineering, transgenics, which is dubbed as the most precise genetic engineering, are incapable of answering the biggest questions. Why are these changes in morphology and the biochemical properties are expressed in these their novel products? So despite all these kind of inherent uncertainties, and also there are also some kind of dishonesty. This was actually reported in Science, the top journal of science, and you have seen this report that this golden rice paper was published. This the efficacy of golden rice in solutions in solving the vitamin A deficiency in Chinese children, and it was a totally unethical research without informing the parents, without informing the government, and as a result, the golden rice paper was retracted. So that was the one good news. But this is again suppressed in the media. Nobody talks about this unethical, illogical, and dishonesty of these scientists promoting, and the technologists promoting golden rice. So these are the other aspects of how industry co-opts this media and co-opts the scientists and their institutions, and how they channel the news about this, to suppress this kind of misbehavior, scientific misbehavior of these institutions and scientists, and suppresses the data, the actual data. Now, golden rice is also a false solution, not just because of this uncertainty, but also because even if we assume that vitamin A will be supplied in full by whatever golden rice or diamond rice or whatever, vitamin A cannot be assimilated in human body unless there is enough dietary zinc in everyday diet of the consumer, and it cannot be assimilated in the absence of enough lipids or fatty acids. Sorry, this is somehow. So absence of enough lipids or fatty acids, because vitamin A is fat soluble vitamin, and it cannot be absorbed in the absence of any kind of lipids or fatty acids in the diet. And if there is any enteric disease like diarrhea, dysentery, or giardiasis, which means it's a problem of the public health problem, the water supply, the drinking water supply is faulty, and if the water contains, the drinking water contains these germs like dysentery, amoeba, or giardia, then no amount of vitamin A can be absorbed from the food, whatever content of the food is there. So the golden rice is a false solution in the absence of all these things, which means it cannot be a solution of a silver bullet solution. It has to be a comprehensive solution, a holistic solution with this with approach to social medicine and public health awareness altogether, which is absent from the corporate agenda. Now, it's another false agenda. I mean, false advertisement that golden rice is the only rice variety which contains vitamin A or provitamin A. Now, much earlier in 2005, Fry and Baker actually documented many varieties from Thailand, rice varieties, which contained beta carotene as well, from 0.13 μg to 0.38 mg in their study. Now, unlike golden rice, this beta carotene actually resides in the bran layer of the rice. So if you actually polish the rice, you lose the opportunity of absorbing, assimilating vitamin B as a vitamin A from the rice. So the solution would be to promote this unpolished rice as a solution which contains high amount. Now, it's not just this very low amount. In my own study in our laboratory, we have already detected 22 different varieties of indigenous rice varieties, which contain very high amount of vitamin A as well. I cannot give you the names of the varieties because it's now in consideration of publication in a journal, in an international peer-reviewed journal. So I don't have the freedom of sharing the names right now, but I'm giving the codes. So these are the codes of the rice varieties. And you can see that these rice varieties, you compare this with SGR1, which is the first generation golden rice, which contained 1.6 mg per gram of beta carotene. And compared with that, all these varieties which contains 14, 17, 16, 27, 16, all of these amount, which was, more than, if you consider percentage, 875%, that means 87% more, 93% more, 91% more, and so on and so forth. And compared with the GR2E, which is the third generation golden rice, which is recently, published, is 29.8 is the highest amount of beta carotene that's available in that rice, which is in red. Compared with that, we already have one K97. This variety already contains about 92% of that. Compared to that 92% of this in that rice, 27.55 mg, which essentially means we can still consume, or there are already natural golden rice available on the farmers' fields with zero investment from industry. And the farmers can procure this, and people can eat this rice free of cost without paying any kind of patent fees or taxes to the corporation. So this is the solution. And compared with sweet potato, which is 18, and you can compare this most of these rice varieties, the indigenous rice varieties, have higher content than the sweet potato, which is promoted of beta carotene. And this is one answer to this kind of corporatocracy, the corporate solution, the fake solution that golden rice is the only solution to vitamin A deficiency. Even in rice, we already have these varieties. And it's not just golden rice. I mean, this is golden rice is only for the vitamin A, which is a paradigm, but there is also genetically modified iron fortified rice, which is IR68144-2B223. Just a big name because it required huge investment of corporation too. It's released by, it's developed in IRRI in Philippines. Now, compared to this, you can see this iron content was 8.9, which was claimed to be the highest content possible in any rice varieties in their publication. And compare this with the traditional varieties, which we have already published in 2 international journals, that contains 4 times to 20 times higher content of iron in those traditional varieties. We have detected 86 varieties of rice, traditional rice varieties, which contains huge amount of iron, free of cost, with zero investment from any corporation. So we already have these answers. We have these thousands of indigenous rice varieties in India, in Thailand, in the Philippines, in Myanmar, in Bangladesh, and it's the policy of the corporation and the corporate-driven government to extricate them, to eliminate these traditional varieties, and to take patents on those properties in the hands of the corporations. That's the corporatocracy, and that's the agenda of the government institutions as well, which we must fight. But we also have to be aware that all these varieties actually contain virtually all the micronutrients that we require, and all the micronutrients that the transgenic corporations, I mean the seed corporations are demanding, can be solved only by genetically modified rice varieties, which is a complete lie, and we already have those. Basudha has our farm, the conservation farm, which is now conserving 1,440 rice land races. That includes 30 varieties from the Philippines as well. And we document all these agromorphological characters, nutritional properties, that includes all these protein, lipids and everything, and also the micronutrient contents and the molecular traits of rice. And we are publishing all of these in the international peer-reviewed journals for free. And we establish free exchange of seeds among all farmers. So it's not, there's no money exchange, no profit making with the seeds. That's our motto and that's our principle. And we promote the free seed freedom and agroecology, which is this seed sovereignty, farmer sovereignty over all these. But rice was a paradigm. I was discussing rice as a paradigmatic case, but it's not just rice alone. If you consider this, the third generation golden rice contains 29.8 μg of beta carotene. You can also consider these, all these, very cheap, very inexpensive. Some of these are also uncultivated plants, which contains so much of this. You can see this compared with 29. You can get this 160 μg, 370 μg, 260 μg, and all of these from these ipomia and yams and red amaranth, white amaranth, brinjal or aubergine, drumstick, jute, and mustard flower, which are all regularly consumed in South Asia by all the South Asian farmers. So, and these have been repeatedly, vindicated by these prestigious science journals by scientists. But our policymakers are oblivious of these pieces of information. They always go for this, the technological quick fix and the silver bullet solutions of genetic modification, transgenics, and all this. And this is actually in many of these, otherwise intelligent people in the academia also are unaware of this existence of these kind of real solutions, true solutions in the hands of the people who have been consuming this for centuries and centuries. And instead now going for this technological silver bullet as a sign of progress. So if intelligent, again going back to this word, if we are really intelligent solution, seeking for this solution, it is scientifically ridiculous, pointless to promote polished rice of a commercial variety and then fortify it with micronutrients. I mean, our previous speakers have already discussed how this rice is processed. They make it flour, then fortify it, and then remold it in the rice shapes, which is essentially fake rice. So when we already have so many of the rice varieties and other cheap food items which are naturally rich in all these micronutrients, it's totally pointless and ridiculous to promote the polished rice and then remold it as fake rice with fortification. So it would be lot easier to promote these dozens of folk crop varieties, not just rice, and inexpensive greens for wide consumption, requiring zero industrial investment, than to fortify the rice grain in the mills. So biotechnological food fortification may also have unintended impacts on consumers' health. I'm not going into the detail of this, the health impacts as indicated by many studies. And the health problems will surely increase the medical expenditure, of course. And this medical expenditure increase will entail enhanced GDP. And the governments and corporates will always show that this enhanced GDP will be the better health of the nation. So unless we are convinced with that logic, we consider this is totally unintelligent solution to this VAD or any other micronutrient deficit problem in any part of the world. I will end this presentation by sharing with you that this month, actually this week, we have published another paper where we have identified 22 varieties of traditional rice, which contains 2 essential fatty acids, which are found only in the mother's milk, in the breast milk, and which are absent in any of the formula baby foods, which means that if you feed the baby who is deprived of a mother's milk, you can feed the baby with these rice varieties. You can boil the rice bran and feed the baby, and this baby will be nourished by exactly those essential fatty acids which are found only in the human breast milk, mother's milk. So this is again, it's not to be found in any of these technological solution. It's already given in nature. I mean, in natural contents of traditional rice varieties. Now, because biotechnology opens the floodgate of patents, patenting on crop seeds, biotech industry actually turns the global politics into biopolitics. Actually, today's politics is biopolitics. That's food politics. And control over production and distribution of the seeds would perpetuate the industry's growth behind the veil of philanthropy, as Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation, which Chito has so clearly defined this, what is behind this philanthropy, the so-called philanthropy. And governments tend to stand behind industry because, again, industry's growth would entail GDP growth. Now, only seed sovereignty and the farmer-consumer alliance, which is exemplified by Nasipag, for example, these are the models which can terminate the corporate hegemony over food production. And I'm hopeful that more and more people, more and more really intelligent people all over the world will gather together and form these kind of alliances against the corporate hegemony, and will resume and recuperate our earth for ourselves back to our hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debal. As always, strong with words. We do have to redefine intelligence.
Yes,
Too much,
absolutely.
Too much faith in those individuals that are creating the very problems to solve them. All over the world, unnamed scientists, aka farmers, as Debal says, have been leading the way. Next, we have a video to share from the Global People Summit. Gail or Alfie, will you please share that video? Thank you so much. Man, that music is intense, right? I don't know where they find that. It's incredible. Rodolfo Lahoy, or JJ, from Iban International will be reading the People's Declaration Against the Corporate Capture of Food Systems. Rodolfo?
Yes.
Please, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren and colleagues. So I will indeed present the People's Declaration, which reflects the positions of the various organizations of peasants, peasant women, rural peoples, indigenous peoples, fisher folk, and our advocates in this important webinar. From the organizers of the Global People Summit on Food Systems to the Stop Golden Rice Network, the People's Coalition on Food Sovereignty, the Asian Peasant Coalition, and other allied important organizations. I believe that the resounding call for our webinar today is the following. And with that, allow me to share my screen. I hope that's visible. So the resounding call for our webinar today, this afternoon, is to kick corporations out of food and agriculture. And as such, small farmers, food producers, consumers, scientists, rural residents, and sectoral groups across Asia and the world are saying that to have a truly transformative food system, the following demands should be met. The first demand is for the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation to hands off our plates, to end the corporate control of food systems. We demand accountability for the irreparable damages and injuries that big capitalists like Bill Gates have inflicted upon the people's lives, livelihoods, and the planet. We demand the dismantling of the Gates-supported institutions such as the Consultative Group of International Agricultural Research and the International Rice Research Institute, which are tools to intensify the corporate monopoly control over seeds and other agricultural resources and to impoverish the farmers. IRRI is also accountable for the disappearance of local land races and associated knowledge, for farmers' indebtedness and misery, and for the devastation of our agricultural farms through its so-called Green Revolution program. The needs and aspirations of small farmers should be front and center of public policies and programs in food and agriculture. In order to build an agricultural system that is truly by and for the small farmers, that respects their rights to form organizations and to join and support institutions that advance their interests, that upholds farmers' rights to defend themselves against the threats to their lives and livelihoods, and that protects them from false information, harassment, intimidation, and unfair practices. The second demand is to forward just, sustainable, and farmer-centered food systems. We demand that farmers' rights to resources such as seeds, land, and knowledge be protected for them to be able to produce food for the people. We demand recognition of their enormous contributions to food security and development. We demand that farmers own the land that they till, to have access to appropriate technologies that are simple, practical, and do not harm the environment, to be given a fair and just price for their products, to have control over the production and all its benefits, and to enjoy a healthy and balanced ecology and agro-biodiversity. We demand, in addition, that farmers be able to freely exchange, use, multiply, and improve their seeds and other genetic resources. Local crop diversity, along with the inherent knowledge and wisdom of farmers, must be protected from biopiracy, the contamination by genetically modified and gene-edited crops, and biopatenting. The last, and certainly not the least, demand for our People's Declaration today, this afternoon, is to forward people's food sovereignty. We demand that public policies on food and agriculture prioritize the right of the people to food and their sovereign right to produce food that is culturally acceptable and grown in an ecological and sustainable manner. Rights-based, comprehensive, and community-led solutions to food production must be forwarded. The people's right to safe, sufficient, nutritious, diverse, and culturally appropriate food must be met at all times, especially during times of disasters such as the ongoing pandemic. Lastly, corporate techno-fixes to address hunger and malnutrition, such as those being peddled by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that continue the push for the corporatization and industrialization of food and farming should be scrapped. Likewise, neoliberal policies to food and agriculture must be stopped and reversed by ending the World Trade Organization and its agreements, as well as other free trade and investment deals, and those that recolonize, and by relocalizing, rather, that's an important point, our food systems. And that's the People's Declaration. With that, I turn over the floor again to Lauren. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rodolfo. Now we have the closing, which is the need for transformative food system. Colonialism has never ended. The root of the word colonialization is culere, which means to cultivate. Our agricultural systems have been under attack since the very beginning. It is time to put a stop and return the control of our food, our land, our seed, and our water into the hands of the people. Now we have Caterina Estavilo, Women's Group Emahan, and the representative of the People's Coalition for Food Sovereignty to end this webinar.
Thank
Caterina.
you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Lauren. I would like to congratulate all the speakers who have really wide knowledge of their topics. It was my first time to hear such discussion, no, on how agrochemical corporations use United Nations platform to promote their greed to profit. So just to cap the discussion, there is really a need for transformation of food system. No, food and agriculture multinationals are raking in profits, and wealthy nations are hoarding foreign lands and food futures. There is an urgent and life-saving need to transform the global food system, a need to radically change the food system to serve the people's need and aspirations, as well as address climate change. The corporation's capture of the United Nations Food System Summit is an open admission of defeat for multilateral agencies and a death threat to the hungry people of the world, the food producers, and of course our planet. Indeed, there is a really need to reclaim our voices in the transformation of the global food regime for just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems. So we would like to rally behind in upholding rural people's rights to land, production, and resources, realizing people's rights to adequate, safe, nutritious, and culturally appropriate food, promoting people's agroecology and sustainability in production, distribution, and consumption, and putting people's food sovereignty and democracy at the core of food and agriculture policies. Thank you and congratulations again.
Thank you, Caterina. Everyone, thank you for joining us today, for tuning in all over the world. I know we had folks from multiple countries and continents on the webinar today. Please join the Global People's Summit. We cannot say this enough. Please join the summit. For an overview of GPS events, go to peoplesummit.foodsov.org/GPS overview. They'll be sharing that link in the chat box now. Go to the GPS call to action. Also, visit the Stop Golden Rice Network and support their cause. There is a call right now to revoke permits for not only golden rice, but BT eggplant. So write the Department of Agriculture Secretary and William Dar of the Philippines to revoke the permit for commercial approval of golden rice and the direct use for food, feed, and processing of BT eggplant. This is incredibly important. We all have a role to play. Let's join together in solidarity and stop the corporatization of our food system. Please. Bill Gates, hands off our plates. You heard that time and again throughout the day. Enough is enough. We need to end the corporate control of our food systems, defend our rights, and fight for local rice diversity. So often we feel overwhelmed. We feel like there's too much going on. There's too much to fight against. However, together we are united. Together we can make a difference. Communities all over the world are on the front lines, and it's up to us to support them, to recognize them, and to end the colonial and corporate takeover of our food system. So in just a few days, the United Nations Food System Summit will be launching. Go wherever you can, follow on social medias, and demand for peasant and indigenous voices to be centered. Demand for agroecology, seed sovereignty, land reform, and decolonialization. Stand up. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please, as Alfie says, write the Department of Agriculture, William Darr, and go to register to join the Global People's Summit. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful day or night.